Gavin.
Hey, Louie.
Oh my god, we're back again.
It is.
So hype, so lit, adrenaline.
Those are lyrics to a song. Mm-hmm. I'm cool. I know what the kids like.
Yes.
So this is our first episode of the spooky season. Kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
I like that I've locked you into this trap of being like, well, we'll start off spooky season by doing somebody who's like not a full-time spooky person and then force you to watch a bunch of scary movies.
Yeah, and then here I was today, literally like underneath my covers, like looking at my phone and over it to look at the movie, and it was still so fucking scary.
And I was just standing in the corner going, yes,
oh,
yes.
God. Oh my god, but who's that?
Oh, somebody has joined us.
I got scared. But it's this our good friend Eddie Mouradian. Oh my goodness. Hi, girl.
Hi, guys.
Hello, Eddie.
You shouldn't have scared us like that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm simultaneously in both of your apartments hiding in a closet.
Yeah.
Which is weird for me.
I was going to say,
physically.
Baby, that closet's been open.
I want to thank you, Eddie, for joining us, especially for this episode, because I was on vacation last week, so I did not have the full time to commit to watching. But you reached out and happened to suggest already what we were going to do, and you are an expert, I would say, in this subject.
I would. I'm an expert in so few things, and this will be on my tombstone.
Before we get to it, though, hi, we're the Mixed Reviews.
Exactly. We are a film podcast in which we take a film subject, such as an actor, director, or a mini genre, and we give you a full history, and then we talk about the spooktacular and the boo-rific.
Boo-rific?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know about that.
Just go with it.
Okay.
Kids, I will turn this car around.
I'm giving boo-rific
I know I'm new here, but let's cut that. Guys. We're going to cut that. Go back to one.
The interns do not listen to him.
No. We have some old business to take care of. Our last episode, we talked about John Hughes, which was a little bit of a controversial episode, I'd say. I even had a conversation last night with some people about, like, John Hughes is like fake white straight America and how it made us all think that America was one way when it's not. But oh my goodness, I feel so happy. I'm back on top, baby. We asked you guys to go to the polls and vote for your favorite John Hughes movie.
I got so close.
And yet so far. And here are the results. We had a couple of votes for other. Jim said he loves Christmas Vacation.
A worthy choice. Yeah.
The Breakfast Club came at 23%. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which was Gavin's choice, came at 25%. And my choice, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, came in at first, 42%. I haven't won one of these things in ages.
Oh, and it was a landslide. And good for you, because, I mean, it really, I think, I was under no illusion that Planes, Trains, and Automobiles was going to win, though it is a good movie, and I do think you should watch it. But, I mean, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It's pretty
Eddie,
stiff.
If you had to pick a fave, what would you pick?
I did listen to the episode, and I loved it.
Thank you.
And I was sort of like, oh, my childhood dreams are crashing around. So thank you guys for that. Yep. I would agree that I think Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is maybe like his best movie, but I probably would have voted for Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Thank you.
Or maybe just by lack of not having seen it, Breakfast Club. I've seen Breakfast Club a lot, but not recently, and it's one of those
I was like,
maybe childhood movies that you're like, I don't want to revisit this. Yeah. I'm going to probably side with the principal this time, I don't want that to be my journey.
It turns out when you grow up, your heart does die.
The truth.
Eddie, we would love for you to introduce our subject. So who are we talking about this week?
The Scream Queen herself, Jamie Lee Curtis.
She absolutely is.
It's so wild. Like, I don't think I knew that she had this, like, Scream Queen persona. I knew she was in Halloween. But then, like, going back and seeing, I was like, oh, she literally was in basically, like, all these Halloween knockoffs. and then also, obviously, the Ryan Murphy atrocity that is Scream Queens.
Great pilot. Great pilot.
Lovely gowns.
Beautiful gowns. Beautiful pilots.
Beautiful gowns.
Beautiful Ariana Grande. So Eddie, so I know why we chose it. I mean, we were, like, talking about, after our last episode, like, oh, maybe we can do Jamie Lee Curtis just, like, to dip our toes into the spooky season.
Last year we did Vincent Price, who is notorious for being in horror films, but also did so many other films outside of that genre. And Jamie Lee Curtis is sort of the same. She has this reputation, especially because she has revisited the Halloween series every decade since the 70s. But she has so many other movies and so many other types of things that she's done in her career that it's kind of a cool place to go in and take a deeper look at what she's been able to do over time.
Yeah. What did you like? I don't know. How did you find her? Why do you love her? Why did you sent us like a massive list of names that included Jamie Lee Curtis? Why Jamie Lee Curtis?
Well, I don't know that I've seen a whole bunch of Jamie Lee Curtis movies, but I think it's probably just the last few years that I maybe have recognized that like she's maybe one of our greatest movie stars. And I have a lot to say about, I will fill in plenty of those Halloween and Scream Queen gaps. But Halloween was definitely a movie that me and my best friend Carla, spent just hours roaming the Blockbuster horror movie aisle and like stumbled across Halloween, and then we watched it 1,000 times.
Yes.
It's so I have sort of that frame of reference, but obviously I didn't clue into any of that until sort of like the 90s, until I was, in middle school. I'm, as you guys know, famously very old. Mm-hmm. And so, but then also just as I pieced it all together, sort of, I realized that, I remember like when A Fish Called Wanda came out, and like my dad and my aunt and my mom, like just loving that movie. It was like the comedy for so long. And then looking back again, like, the summer of 94 when True Lies came out, and you were just like, oh, this movie is so great. She's so great. And, we even like watched her sitcom, Anything But Love. So it was sort of like all of these things sort of like pieced together about her throughout kind of my life, sort of. But then it was when I was older and she did H2O. Mm-hmm. And sort of like I was aware enough to be hyped by the fact that Jamie Lee Curtis was coming back to Halloween. And then these last couple of years with Knives Out and the new Halloween.
Oh my
and
God.
I've dubbed Jamie Lee Curtis the most bankable actor in Hollywood.
And
yeah,
well, I also want to hit on something that you said right off the top, which is she really is a movie star, and she comes from this lineage of movie stars, and she's like maybe one of our last great connections to that era. And we're going to touch on it once we get into the rewind, but she was one of the last people to ever be signed to a studio contract.
Really?
So,
it's crazy.
Yeah. And so like, it's so interesting to look at her career and her path, and the fact that she comes from these two other legends. There's a great New Yorker article that was written a couple of years ago around the time that Knives Out came out, called Jamie Lee Curtis Has Never Worked a Hard Day in Her Life. And that's a quote from her.
Wow.
So, and I don't know. I love this idea that she's like, yeah, I didn't like, there's all these other actors who had this normal life. I didn't. Like, yeah. I was royalty, and I still am. And I love, but it also doesn't come off as like chip on her shoulders sort of way. It's a really interesting aura to put out in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if like you said, we're going to get into it in the rewind, but something that I was really thinking about when I knew that we were going to talk about her was she used her status and her privilege in a way to like take the piss out of being a movie star, in a way that I found and find so endearing. Like where you can sort of feel that she like looks around and kind of is like, this is all stupid. This is all crazy.
Yeah.
And also because I think there's this feeling of like, if it all went away, I would still be, these famous people's daughter.
Yes,
so
yeah.
I'm just going to kind of have a good time. And I made this connection in my brain. And I think that the current day analog to her is like a Dakota Johnson.
Okay. I can see it.
Because you could see a 90s version of Jamie Lee Curtis going on whatever the equivalent of Ellen is. Maybe it's Rosie O'Donnell. Maybe it's one of the late night shows. And being like, you never invited me to your birthday party.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say that because like, I don't like, who cares? Why would I lie?
Right. What are you going to do?
And, I love that about her. I think she's the best.
What a perfect, I think, point then for us to jump into our rewind. Let's go.
Absolutely. Jamie Lee Curtis was born November 22nd, 1958, which makes her 61. Curtis was born in Santa Monica, California. Her parents are actor Tony Curtis and actress Janet Leigh. Tony Curtis, star of many, many great films, Spartacus, Some Like It Hot, Janet Leigh, Hitchcock, Psycho. You know, she is royalty. These are, by the way, these are two people that the studio were like, please don't date.
Really?
Yeah, please don't date. They met at a photo shoot, and then they hit it off, and soon enough they were married.
Were they like, but we're both hot and like famous?
Exactly. She has an older sister, Kelly Lee Curtis. I love that they share the same middle name.
That's so fun.
And she is half Jewish on her father's side, and her mother is just white. Just lots of white.
Lots of white.
Danish, German, Scotch, Irish, you know. That's
all the white places.
Me. She's me. Her parents divorced when she was real young and married several more times. And so she has several half siblings. Allegra Curtis, who's an actress, Benjamin, Alexandria, and Nicholas Curtis, who died in 1994 from a drug overdose. We're going to be talking a lot about drugs. Trigger warning in this episode, because she has suffered from addiction during her career. Her father suffered from addiction. She helped him get over it. It's sort of the way they reconnected. But for the most part, he wasn't around when she was a kid. So they were a bit estranged. And Janet Leigh becomes a kind of de facto best friend. It sounds creepy and fucking weird, but she called Janet Leigh the night she lost her virginity.
I think we said it on Phil Donahue. I guess we can say it. You know, I mean, the night that she lost her virginity. I mean, she called me and we talked about it.
I can't even imagine like calling my mom that I've had sex at any moment.
But they do remain really good friends. Actually, my favorite fun story about growing up for her was she used to tell people in interviews that she, you know, notoriously her mother wouldn't let them watch Psycho because she didn't want it to scare them. And she claimed that as a little kid, when she was 9, she watched Psycho and couldn't sleep alone that night. And then later, years later, she finally said in an interview, I made that up. I was just tired of people asking if I've seen it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
See, that sort of goes to the point, right?
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't imagine another celebrity just being like, I made it up. I just didn't want anybody to ask me anymore.
I don't care.
She hates horror movies, and that's going to come back in a moment. But yeah, she's a notorious scaredy cat. She doesn't like being scared.
She's just like me.
Yeah, she's you, Louis. Curtis attended Westlake School in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills High School. She graduated from Choate Rosemary Hall. In 1976, she attended her mother's alma mater, the University of Pacific in Stockton, California, and she was planning on becoming a lawyer.
I wanted to be a lawyer at one point and study criminal law.
But then she dropped out to pursue acting. Her mother was very honest with her from the start.
I said, it's been a wonderful business to me. It's given me a great life. If that's your choice, go for it. You know, as long as you know that there's a lot of pitfalls in it, too. I mean, you know, there's rejection, there's disappointments, there's a lot of things that go in it. You become sort of a public figure so that you have to be able to handle that. And I said, all of that's fine. Just wait until you get out of high school. You can start college, and if you quit, I don't care about that. Just give yourself a chance to be a kid.
Imagine a Jamie Lee Curtis legal eagle, you know, like attorney at law.
I think she could do it. That's the thing.
Well, yeah, she's like famously very, admittedly, like very controlling and a little bit persnickety.
Yeah.
So I think she would be like a great lawyer.
She started going on auditions, and the thing is, she has no formal training. So she basically got the advice, maybe you should study some. And so she started taking acting classes, but basically she has said, her acting professor told her, well, you're good at being other people, so why don't you just focus on the minutiae? And that was basically it.
I never studied, really. I studied with an acting teacher once who I worked with him. I went to his house, Alan Rich, fantastic actor and teacher. And I remember we did a scene. I sat opposite him like we are. We finished it, and he looked at me and he said, okay, well, you know how to be other people. So now your entire job is read, study art, listen to music, take photographs. I'm a photographer. You know, immerse yourself in art. you know how to pretend to be somebody else. Because pretending to be somebody else has never been difficult for me.
And she has made no qualms about the fact that obviously being the daughter of these two Hollywood legends has certainly helped her career. We're going to get to Halloween in a moment, but she has said the only reason she got the role in Halloween is it came down to her and another girl who she's never named. And she said, clearly they were like, well, your mother was in Psycho. It looks great for us.
A legacy of ooky spookiness.
But she doesn't technically get her start there. She makes her first television appearance in 1977 in an episode of the drama series Quincy Emmy. And then she bounced around TV for a little while. She was on Columbo, Charlie's Angels, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. She even got her first lead role on a TV show where she played Nurse Lieutenant Barbara Duran on the short-lived comedy series Operation Petticoat, which was based off of a 1959 film starring her father and Cary Grant.
That's wild.
She was also a frequent guest on Match Game, which, by the way, I found her first episode of Match Game, and
who does she play in Snatch Game?
Oh, we have a new kid on the block. No,
I meant to warn you about this.
We have to give her a proper welcome now, don't we?
Indeed. All of us.
Now, you will just give a little brisk applause, and you will applause as we welcome this new kid on the block, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Her first film is 1978's Halloween. She plays the character of Laurie Strode, and she basically creates sort of a new genre, or solidifies a new genre of horror films where she...
I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
I know that it like sparked this wave of like specific horror movies where like The Girl and like Slasher.
Right.
And it literally carries on for her until now. You know, we were talking about H2O earlier. You know, like that was like during the time in the millennium where like, you know, I Know You Did Last Summer and Scream, and like it feels like every time, you know, or not every time, but there are these waves that keep coming, and she's always there. She's always there with this trend.
Which is funny because, and this ties into our last episode, she's talked about this. She talked about how John Hughes didn't exist for her when she was making movies. If you wanted to see teenagers up on the screen being taken seriously, doing things that teenagers do, having sex, smoking pot, you were going to have to watch them get butchered.
When I was 18, there weren't a lot of movies angled toward a young audience. There weren't, you know, John Hughes was, I guess, still in Chicago. I think that's where he's from. He was in Chicago, and I was here, and he wasn't making movies when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. They were making horror films. That was the teen genre of that era, of that, you know, part of my life was that's what they made, so I did it.
What I think is really interesting about Halloween, and Louis, to your point, is it's sort of like they're creating a template or solidifying a template that they didn't know that they were creating or solidifying. Because, you know, later in like the height of Reagan conservatism, when like the slasher movie really booms with Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, like you do have that like virginal final girl, goody two-shoe, if you have sex, you die. But Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis's character, is like, you know, she's smoking pot in the car. She's a character who happens to be very shy and like scared of boys. And she says in that movie, boys think I'm too smart, which is not something you could ever imagine kind of like an 80s era slasher final girl saying.
Right.
And so everyone points to Laurie Strode and Jamie Lee Curtis for like creating this and like knowingly do it. But John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, who wrote that movie and directed it, are like, that wasn't our plan at all. Which makes it, I think, so much more interesting that like, she's like, oh yeah, the original final girl, the original virginal, you know, scream queen. And she's like, yeah, I guess those are just things that my character did and became the thing that defined a whole generation of other characters.
Right. So I had never seen the original Halloween, and I did for this.
It's a perfect film.
You say it's a perfect film?
It's a perfect film.
Okay, noted. I didn't spoiler, I guess, like it opens up with like Michael Myers as a child killing his sister.
She just lets him stab her?
Yeah.
She certainly doesn't fight.
It's a child.
Like she just and then is dead after she had the quickest on-screen sex of all time.
Well, and that's what I'm saying.
Right?
Like she's
they
naked
are teens,
as fuck.
okay?
She's naked and just like touching herself, and then she's like, "Little child with knife, what?" And I was like, okay, so immediately like, I have so many questions about Michael Myers as like a character, but he's like, my sister was fucking and I hate it, so I killed her. But anyway,
I could turn this into a Halloween podcast real quick, but that's not why we're here, and I have to respect that.
Thank you.
But before we move away from Halloween, by the way, but I think all of your readings are perfect. I do want to shout out, because we do keep saying Final Girl. Shout out to Carol J. Clover, who's an author who wrote the amazing book Men, Women, and Chainsaws, Gender and Modern Horror Film. I've read that book. I've actually gone back to that book a couple times. It's brilliant, and it's where the concept of the final girl actually comes from, where somebody, a cultural critic, took the time to sit down and analyze and realize that, like, oh, this is a common thing that sort of starts here. I would highly recommend going and checking that out. It's a little dense, it's theory heavy, but it's a great book.
Before we move away from Halloween, my last thing on the subject, is it the greatest film debut of all time? Is there another performer or performance that set the blueprint for what a whole genre of film would be? Also is a great performance. Also, is then launching a character in their first film that they would play in a franchise that would span 40 plus years, and that she would then play in each of the successive 6 decades.
Yeah.
I think you can make a case for, obviously there are great film debuts, Edward Norton, Kate Winslet, blah, blah, blah. But like the tail on her debut is kind of crazy when you look at the details.
Yeah, it's insane.
Standing right there. Poor Laurie. Scared another one away.
It's tragic you never go out. You must have a small fortune stashed from babysitting so much.
You guys think I'm too smart.
I don't. I think you're wacko. Now you're seeing men behind bushes.
It becomes one of the highest grossing independent films of all time. Obviously, as you guys have mentioned, it sets this sort of template for slasher films. I would be remiss if I didn't say it does come after Black Christmas, and some people say it was sort of created as a ripoff of Black Christmas. I think it pulls off a lot of the things Black Christmas did well, even better. So that's just my 2 cents. Her next film, she also does with John Carpenter. It's The Fog. She's in that movie with her mother, Janet Leigh. People didn't love it, but the box office was strong. So she gets cemented as a scream queen. And we mentioned that. And she's, as you guys have mentioned, she starts starring in these like big Halloween knockoffs. You know, there's Prom Night, which is a snooze, though she does get a Genie Award nomination for best performance by a foreign actress because it was shot in Canada. She's in Terror Train. She's in Road Games, which I actually do like. I want to give a shout out to Road Games.
Road Games was a movie that I saw for the first time for this that I didn't even know existed, and I thought was really good.
Yeah, I will say it's hard to be like, oh, that's a Jamie Lee Curtis movie. She doesn't show up for 45 minutes and then she disappears for like almost the entire last half an hour. But she's great in the limited role she has.
And you kind of wanted it to do just a little bit more. I really thought they were going somewhere different with Stacy Keach.
It's funny because she's doing all of these horror films on the big screen, and really the only other place that she can escape to is television, because she's got this reputation. You know, Roger Ebert once referred to her as getting stuck in the same realm as Boris Karloff was in the 1930s. And I mean, I feel like that's definitely true. So she was doing these TV films to sort of set her apart. I went deep on the TV films. I know we don't normally cover TV, but I loved some of them. I have to say, I don't know if either of you saw any of it, but Money on the Side is a great, like, little, I gave it 2 stars, but is a great little TV film where she plays a housewife who starts working as a sex worker on the side. It's three housewives who start working as sex workers, but she gives like these like crazy monologues in the movie that I really like.
Have you dated before?
I know what to expect.
That's not what I asked.
That is what I answered.
You're real angry, aren't you?
Aren't we all? And cold.
Men love them cold.
And I think the place that she proves that she's a force to be reckoned with in terms of dramatic work is a 1981 television film, Death of a Centerfold, the Dorothy Stratton story. She plays Dorothy Stratton, who was a Playboy playmate who ended up getting murdered by her ex-husband. And there's a very famous film made of it by Bob Fosse called Star 80. But I don't know. I didn't love this movie, but I really liked her performance in it. Did either of you get a chance to see it? It's available on YouTube for free.
I have seen some of her later TV movies. I saw The Heidi Chronicles. I've seen Nicholas's Gift. I hadn't seen those. But what you just said, I think, is super true about Jamie Lee Curtis is she's in a lot of stinkers, man. Like, she's in a lot of movies that aren't great. She is rarely bad.
Yeah.
You know, there are, if just by sheer charisma alone, she's rarely bad. Am I too in the bag for Jamie Lee Curtis, guys?
No.
Not at
I mean,
all.
I do think it's true, and there's going to be a couple other movies as we start to move away. I feel like everybody's sort of waiting for us to get to the next big thing, which is her comedy work. But before we get there, there's still a couple. But I do want to say, a lot of people think that Trading Places is the big thing that she did in Trading Places that was so different and so off the mark. Is she did all these horror movies and that she does this comedy and she bears her breasts. Death of a Centerfold, the Dorothy Stratton story. Not everything is for America, folks. She went topless for that movie, but it's only in the foreign markets version. So Europe got to see Jamie Lee's breasts way before we ever did.
Well, that's one of the things that struck me watching all these movies, and I hadn't seen a lot of this. Like, I'm going to be very honest, I hadn't seen a lot. But going through, I was like, this is a woman who is in charge of her sexuality.
Yeah.
Gives no fucks. I mean, and she is, I think she is a very unconventionally beautiful woman. Like, she does not have the conventional, like, beauty, Hollywood, whatever nonsense. But,
she would
like,
totally agree with you, by the way. I've seen her in so many interviews be like, I am not gorgeous.
It's one of the things that I've always never really thought I was very pretty. So I've always thought that I should play like the unattractive girl in movies. So my good looks have never hurt me because I don't really think that they're that good. They're weird. I've got a really bizarre little face. It's like all crooked. It's like when I came out on a real weird angle. It's like, down the chute, but it was like, a crooked smile. I mean, I'm all screwed up.
But, like, her bod is banging. She single-handedly is, like, the reason why, I don't know, pixie haircuts exist. Like, it's wild. I mean, and so, I mean, we've talked about, actresses before and, like, them, like, being nude on film and how sometimes it feels gross. It never felt gross with her because she's just so confident and so in charge of it all.
And the funny thing is, like, speaking of being in charge of it, she was the one who decided when she was going to do it. Dorothy Stratton's story, they basically were like, you don't have to do this. She did it. She wanted to get comfortable.
Yes, the fuck I do.
and then in the 90s, there came a point where she's like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And she said that in interviews. She's like, this was written to be a topless thing. I was like, no, not for me anymore. So good for her. I do want to, right before we get to Trading Places, there's a couple other things she does. Most of these didn't really make a mark, but Grandview USA is sort of a proto John Hughes.
I liked it too. I have never. I like Patrick Swayze. I'm a human being on this earth.
Correct.
Like, I like grew up in the height of Ghost and Dirty Dancing, Point Break, Roadhouse. Like, yeah, but I've never gotten it. You know what I mean? Like, I gotta tell you, Patrick Swayze in that movie as like a dumb lunkhead was great. And also in that movie, it's like this, like Gavin was starting to say, like this, like sort of like John Hughes-ish kind of movie that kind of like gets into some trouble spots. Maybe
it's almost like John Hughes if John Hughes like actually wrote about people that didn't have money and in a diverse area, which is not to say that like the most progressive area, certainly, like, but it is. There's black people in the film and they actually feel like they have internal lives and no homophobia. No one's like dropping F-bombs just for fun. And I was like shocked. I was like, oh, these people feel real. These teenagers feel real. They're drinking and everything. But
there's a character with autism.
Yeah. And there's no like,
and never like the punchline, the character with autism. He's just like a guy who has autism.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was a little shocked because it comes before a lot of the John Hughes movies.
Yeah.
But then those sort of set the template and changed everything.
But my big thing about Grandview USA, besides Patrick Swayze, was when Jennifer Jason Leigh shows up, and she's like, I was like, what movie is she in? She is in that movie, which is like a light, breezy comedy, as like a vixen from the 50s by way of her single white female character. It is wild.
I said that the costume point was that she's a community theater production of Sandy at the end of Grease.
That's exactly what she is.
One last thing too about Patrick Swayze, by the way, She's Like the Wind, which eventually went on to be one of the big love themes from Dirty Dancing. He wrote for the Jamie Lee Curtis love story in this movie, and then the producers were like, this movie is not that serious. Like, we can't put this song in the movie. And the other movie I want to point out during that era, 1984, also is a movie called Love Letters. And I don't know if
oh my God.
I fucking loved it. It's totally my jam. Love Letters is essentially it's written and directed by Amy Holden Jones, who had only written and directed one movie before this, which is Slumber Party Massacre. And she wanted to do something that wasn't horror, and she brought it to Roger Corman, and Roger Corman was like, I'll produce it as long as there's some nudity in it. He's like, she can be lounging on a chair. It doesn't have to be sexual. So there is...
Why did he want that?
Because it sells, babe. It sells.
Cool.
Louis, I don't know if you've ever heard this before. I think Gavin and I just created this term. Sex sells.
Yes, crazy.
I think I just coined it just now. Right there.
Yeah.
Sex sells.
But her inspiration was she went and saw the movie Shoot the Moon, which we talked about in our Diane Keaton episode. And she was like, why is the husband treated as a victim in this movie? And why do I not know more about the poor woman that he had an affair with? And like, what's her story? And so she wrote this movie based around that. And I think it's a fascinating look. It's almost like it is a little... like it feels a little thriller-esque. It's got some tense beats, but it's almost like if Fatal Attraction wasn't about a woman who's insane.
I don't think I liked it as much as you did. I described it to somebody as the movie's called Love Letters, and the plot of the movie is, what if there were love letters? And I feel like that was the plot of the movie.
No, she has an affair with a hot man, but he's married.
Right. She's lost in life, and she's like, my mother did this thing. I'm still like forced to take care of my father, who's an alcoholic. She left this man that she wasn't in love with me. I need this escape too. And then like she gets to the end and realizes like, wait, I'm not my fucking mother. I am acting a little crazy. Like, maybe I should bring it back and, like, do my own thing. Yeah.
Why couldn't you just lie to me? Why couldn't you just lie and say, Anna, I don't love her? Would it be so hard?
It's not fair, is it?
I think you should leave.
It was fine. I did think the sex scenes were hot. Like, especially for hot, right?
Hilariously, by the way, that the guy that she's in love with in that movie is Stacy Keach's brother.
That's what I was just gonna say. Co-star of what movie were
Road
they?
Games.
Road Games, and also another John Hughes connection. Amy Holden Jones went on to write Beethoven
with John Hughes.
Wow.
With John Hughes.
Far from the Slumber Party Massacre.
I also think it's super interesting that she works with a lot of female writers and female directors. And I wonder if that comes from the experience of working with Deborah Hill, in Halloween. But it is impressive when you look at all of the films. It feels like it's something that she's obviously championed outwardly, but even in the films that she chose.
I do want to say that she ends up becoming very good friends with Deborah Hill, and they have like a lifelong friendship until Deborah Hill passed away, unfortunately. And Halloween 2 sort of caps, she says she went, I mentioned she's friends with Deborah Hill, and she goes back to do Halloween 2 because she really thought like, I owed it to these people. Carpenter was going to direct. He ends up not doing that. And she's basically like, okay, done. we're done with this.
Bitch,
Wait, did you watch Halloween 2? Probably not, right?
I watched 3 Halloween films, okay? And that was plenty, okay? I watched Halloween 1, I watched Halloween H2O, and then I watched Halloween 2018 version.
I can see watching Halloween and Halloween 2018 because, like, those are kind of direct. Were you confused at all in Halloween show? Were you confused at all? Because the revelation that she's his sister only occurs in Halloween 2.
I was not confused. I was just assuming, I was like, and they say, he's like, my brother. And I was like, oh, I guess that was her brother. You know, whatever.
I think that the brother-sister thing is like, in some versions of the first one, they like threw in scenes that had happened. Like I think at the TV version.
Yeah. So what they did is they had to, because Halloween's not a long movie, and so what they did is they went back and shot new scenes while they were shooting Halloween 2 for the TV version of Halloween.
Wait, so Halloween 2 is like what? Like he's like, oh, surprise!
It's like the next night is literally like they. Her at the hospital that night.
I was gonna say Halloween 2 takes place mostly on November 1st.
It is good by the standards of kind of like what horror movies had become at that point, which is funny because now Halloween sets the blueprint in 1978, and then in 1981 Friday the 13th has come out, all these other slasher movies have come out, and now Halloween 2 is like 1,000 times more kills. Yeah. And they do it very stylishly and stuff. But what I thought was interesting about it, so in the book The Shape by Travis Mullins and Dustin McNeil, which is I've been listening to on audio, they pointed out that, like, so Halloween 1, the original Halloween, they're not brother and sister canonically. Halloween 2, they reveal that they are. So that means that in Halloween, the original, when Laurie Strode's adopted father asks her to go drop off the key at the Myers house on Halloween, that man is saying to his daughter, please go to the house where your brother murdered your sister on the anniversary of that and just drop off this key.
Casual. It's a little errand.
It doesn't make sense because in the first film, that wasn't the plan. But in the second film, it makes the actions of the first film seem insane.
I mean, I think what you're missing is that and it's a deleted scene, but he immediately jumps out and shouts "punked" and is like, "You're his sister." Yeah.
You know what? I did miss that version of it,
right.
But it is kind of crazy. And her wig is like all time in that movie, right?
Oh yeah,
her wig in Halloween 2. Louis, watch just for the wig.
I'm gonna just Google the wig right now.
There's a good movie in there. I just don't think
What's funny is I'm looking now at the wig, and now her hair in the Halloween remake of 2018 makes so much sense.
Right, exactly. She did nothing with it from that moment on. Even though that movie doesn't exist, I guess, in the world of Halloween.
That's true. Yeah. 2018. 2018, I love the throwaway, like, I heard he was her sister, and she's like, no, that's just a rumor. Yeah. All right, we're gonna get out of the Halloween stuff, and we're gonna move along into her career. Her like big breakthrough, like, I'm no longer the screen queen, is 1983's Trading Places. It's a comedy with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. She plays a sex worker in it. She shows her boobs. Everybody's like, oh my god, she's so grown up, and she gets a BAFTA award for Best Actress in a Supporting Role. I did not revisit it, and I know I should have because I know it's so iconic in her career, but I've seen it before. I feel like I've seen it 1 billion times on TBS in the afternoon, and
I hadn't seen it in 150 years. And I rewatched it, and I hated it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't like it either. Okay, good. Safe space.
I think it has just aged really poorly. You know, I was already kind of teetering with all of like the F words and like the racial slurs, and maybe right now in this exact moment is not the time that I want to watch two straight old white men, rich white men, bet $1 on whether or not they can ruin or save a black person's life.
Yeah.
So by the time Dan Aykroyd showed up at the end of that movie in blackface, I thought, no, thank you.
Right.
No, thank you. And it just all left me super, super icky. I thought she was great. I felt bad that she had to like be the love interest of Dan Aykroyd for like the first of 3 times. But yeah, it was a no for me.
It's a no for me,
It's a
dog.
no for me. Yeah, it's a no for me, dog.
And also fuck John Landis. So anyways,
There you go.
she then enters her like mid 80s period, which is not remembered as shall we say perfect.
Oh.
In 85 she does a movie called Perfect, 87 A Man in Love, 87 Amazing Grace and Chuck, and 88 Dominic and Eugene. I know you guys want to talk about Perfect, so I'm going to open up the floor for that, but I'm assuming I just real quick out of all of those, I've seen Perfect and Amazing Grace and Chuck. Amazing Grace and Chuck is not great. It's very strange. It's basically like a Disney movie about kids protesting nuclear war. Yeah, and it gets dark and deep. She's the agent of a basketball player who like joins the protest and then gets fucking assassinated. Let's talk about 1985's Perfect just real quick.
Well, I think the main thing is that the media is bad. Don't trust the media.
Louis, could you expand on that? Because the movie was really subtle on that point.
Well,
they were.
What you don't get is that the media lies, takes things out of context, is only after the story. And especially the hot story of aerobics instructors.
Yeah. Well, so this is the crazy thing. So essentially, you have John Travolta, young, hot John Travolta. He's a reporter for Rolling Stone, which I think that's the most shocking thing to me, that Rolling Stone would be like, yeah, use our name.
Maybe
not only that Rolling Stone was like, cover.
Yeah, cover. The cover story.
The cover story for Rolling Stone magazine is going to be about how gyms are the new singles bars. What?
And the whiplash between like the other story that he's writing or like in the movie is like this big political scandal, corruption, and like this the reporter is going from that to like, yeah, my next big story I think is going to be about, you know, fucking at the gyms.
It is, I think, Gavin, you said this about like, I think you just said it about Halloween too, but like that to me, Perfect is like, there is a good entertaining movie in there.
Yes.
Like you get rid of the subplot about the other story. You know, Jamie Lee Curtis at one point gets mad at him for recording a conversation that they're having, but he has the recorder out. He's not pretending that he isn't recording her. The stakes.
He's not like holding flowers with a recorder hidden inside her.
The stakes couldn't be lower.
Right. But also the gag of like, she's like, that reporter wrote about like me having an affair, and he's like, well, was it the truth? And she's like, yeah, but like still don't.
Jesse, don't you think you're overreacting to this?
Yeah? That's what the other reporter said to me.
Oh, don't compare me to the other reporter. I didn't even mention your name.
You think I care about my name? You talk to me about Emerson and baby boomers and physical great awakening, and all you do is write a fucking little piece about people getting into each other's pants.
Hey, everything I wrote in that story is true.
Everything the other reporter wrote about me was true too, but it still hurts.
It has no sense of irony that at one point Jamie Lee Curtis, who is compelling in it, John Travolta is very, very compelling in it, Mary Lou Henner, Lorraine Newman, like it's not poorly acted, but there's no sense of irony when during the big fight where she's like, what's so wrong with wanting to be perfect? And I was like, girl, you need therapy. You're not okay, babe.
Yeah.
I didn't. That said, can we just talk about the meme?
The meme it's so good.
You know, so if anybody, if you've ever seen the meme where it's like John Travolta moving his hips in an aerobics class and Jamie Lee Curtis also moving her hips in an aerobics class, and if that's all you know from it, you are ill prepared to watch this 5-minute scene of them truly eye-fucking each other.
Yeah, it's hot.
I think it's 7 months of being in a pandemic where I was like, is this the most sexual thing I've ever seen? Is this really working for me? The answers were yes and yes. Anyway, watch Perfect, but please know that we all know it's not a good movie.
Her next film, though, 1988's A Fish Called Wanda, I think really sort of brings her back into her strong game. A Fish Called Wanda is this comedy co-written by John Cleese. She plays a thief in it. She is with Kevin Kline. They also work with Michael Palin, who has this like oppressive stutter, which I've heard people back and forth be like, oh, he's making fun of the disabled. His father had a stutter, and he basically patterned it off of his father's stutter. I don't know if that makes it any better for anybody, but I do like that he was kind of doing something in tribute to his father. Like, he really thought hard about how his father's stutter was less pronounced when he was around people he trusted, and more pronounced around people that he was terrified of. And John Cleese plays a barrister, a lawyer in it, and essentially her job is to seduce him, and she actually does start to fall in love with him, and she might betray the people that she's working with. Kevin Kline plays a complete asshole in it. He's so good. Yeah, just the worst, but he's so good at it.
Oscar winner, Kevin Kline.
Kevin Kline for A Fish Called Wanda, exactly.
First and only Oscar nomination.
I was going to say, it's so funny. She's the one who, I think she's really great in it. I feel like she's the most overlooked part of it. She did get...
She got a Golden Globe nomination, I think,
yeah,
right?
She was nominated at the Golden Globes, but I feel like BAFTA and the Oscars really went for all of the male roles, you know. I think she was also nominated at the BAFTAs for Best Actress, but like,
it feels like that movie like solidifies her as a comedic talent.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
like where Trading Places is sort of like, yeah, she's good in this. This is her breaking out of the teen roles, but Fish Called Wanda really makes her as like a comedy star.
And what's really funny is John Cleese has talked about how each actor really shaped their role and how each of them came up with bits and things. And, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis has talked about how she had to be off camera for a lot of it because she kept cracking up. But I don't know. I like that fact because she famously has said she cannot improvise at all. She said the only line she's ever improv'd in her entire career is "Make Good Choices" from Freaky Friday.
Which is I wrote that down for Freaky Friday because I always say that.
Make Good Choices.
That was her. And but I refuse to believe that because I think John Cleese, why would John Cleese be like, I'm going to give credit to everyone else?
Right.
And, but I don't know. Fish Called Wanda, very funny movie. 1990, she does Blue Steel for Kathryn Bigelow. It's actually a role Kathryn Bigelow wrote for her. Blue Steel, fun, crazy action movie.
I don't know if I call it fun.
Crazy? I had no idea that that's what it was.
Neither.
So it was like I remember it's like one of those movies that I really remember the poster and like the video box, you know? And I always thought it was something else. I thought it was like maybe more of like a sex thriller, which I guess it is a little bit. But I wasn't expecting the whole psycho angle, which is my favorite subgenre of movies. If you guys ever want to have me back, it's my favorite subgenre of movies.
What's wild though is like
write that down.
Know.
We know, Eddie. With a scene of like the bad guy who's just like working out and like saying how I'm a god. I was like,
well.
What?
The crazy thing in the movie, the part that I think is truly insane is that the villain in the film, Ron Silver, gets a cop's gun and then turns into a Terminator.
Yeah.
Just like unkillable, just perfect shot. Yep. It's just
running
nuts.
And smarter than everybody else. Like the way he gets out of these jams is kind of ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
But he's like a pretty good psycho, and like
he's
not
so
really
good
in that
it.
pantheon of psychos. I was disappointed because like I said, I didn't know much about it. But when I saw Elizabeth Pena, I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. She's in this movie, and then she has like one scene.
Yeah,
but she's fine. No spoilers.
Right,
Nothing
she's okay by the end. I just mostly thought like, man, this movie's literally just like men suck. That's it.
I mean, Kathryn Bigelow. I mean, we've only ever really talked about one other Kathryn Bigelow on this movie on this show, which is Strange Days. But I what a good fucking director.
Yeah.
What a good
She's so great. She's so good.
And we're entering the 90s now, and you're gonna see Jamie Lee Curtis's career sort of ebb and flow a lot. And
she's a verse queen.
She's a verse queen.
She's a verse queen. We can relate.
Truth. There's stuff going on in her personal life that I've skipped over, so I guess now would be a good time to mention in terms of her, she's married to previous subject Christopher Guest, which means she does actually hold a royal title. By the way, she is the Right Honorable the Lady Hayden Guest. She has said the title has nothing to do with me.
She prefers the title boss ass bitch.
Exactly. Essentially, she's like hanging out in her apartment with Deborah Hill. She's fanning through Rolling Stone, and she sees a picture of Christopher Guest with the Spinal Tap guys out of costume. And she's like, I'm going to marry that guy. Deborah Hill's like, he like works in our agency, right? So Deborah Hill calls the agency.
Deborah Hill's like, that's my best friend. Crazy.
Yeah. And so she like essentially gets a hold of his agent, and she's like, hi, I'm Jamie Lee Curtis. I think Christopher Guest is really cute. Here's my number. Have him call me. He never calls. Like a month later, they're at a restaurant. She's at a restaurant. She sees Christopher Guest across the way. He like nods and like raises his glass to her. Like, hey, I got your note. And she like kind of nods to like whatever. And so he gets up to leave and is kind of like, okay, well, it was good to see you, I guess. And she's like, yeah, whatever, playing it cool and everything. A month later, they go on their first date, but he's leaving to go to New York to be on Saturday Night Live. He tries to get out of his Saturday Night Live contract to continue dating her. Can't do it. Only does SNL for a year, comes back to LA, and they are married on December 18th, 1984.
The most wild thing about that is she can't improvise, and he famously fucking like hates people who can or can't.
I know.
And that's true love. He broke through. She broke through.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Because he also is, we talked about this in the episode. He's famously like one of the most prickly people. And
oh my God,
is so unimpressed by anyone famous.
But that's what I the funny thing is about her versus him in interviews. Like he is so reserved and so like throw it back in their face and everything. And she's like, she is, as you mentioned, Eddie, she is very control freak, but she goes into interviews wanting to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, I'm not gonna be like a dick.
Right.
You're gonna enjoy this as much as I enjoy this.
She seems like she's always having fun, right? Like
Yeah.
she's doing Activia commercials, and you're like, this woman is having the time of her life.
Yes,
absolutely. And
her greatest role. That's my 5-star review. Activia. The 4-star review.
All right, end this podcast.
The 4-star review is the photographs of her yelling at her publicist in the restaurant where she's like drinking, and then like is yelling.
Yeah. Exactly. They have 2 children together. They adopt their child Annie in 1986, and they adopt another child, Thomas, in 1996. And as I mentioned, like we're in the 90s, and it's kind of this. It's a little bit back and forth. She does My Girl, which is kind of a huge hit. She plays Aveda Sultan Fuss's like new like soon to be stepmother. Like I guess that really doesn't come into play until the second movie, but she's the paramour of Veda's father.
And her My Girl is like the softest I think we like see her. She's there's nothing like exaggerated about her. In a lot of these other movies, they're kind of broad in whatever genre it is, whether she's going for big laughs or big scares, or like even like Grandview USA, she's like, this larger than life character. In My Girl, she's truly just like, you need a mom, hun? Like, she's very sweet. Yeah.
She's so warm and maternal. It's a great performance.
I have to say, and because I want to get it out because it's definitely not either of my picks, but like I love her performance in My Girl. I genuinely do, because it is this way. And like if you think about it, like she has been at this point in time, she's been a mother for 6 years. They're considering adopting another child, which will come along in about 4 years. I don't know. There is this like maternal aura that she's just like giving out in that movie. It's so good.
Yeah.
Shelley, do you think I'm pretty?
Yes, Veda, I think you're very pretty. You've got these great, big, sparkling eyes, cutest little nose, an amazing mouth.
The boys at school don't think I am.
They'll come around. Close your eyes. I want to bring out the gorgeous color in them. Now, the first rule in applying eye makeup is you can never wear enough blue eyeshadow.
But the dark side of that maternal aura. She does Forever Young in 1992. We won't talk about it because Mel Gibson. But in 1993, Mother's Boys.
Gorgeous. Perfect film.
Oh my God.
What that movie is a real problem.
Louis, did you watch Mother's Boys?
No, I'm scared.
Louis, you need to do yourself a favor and watch Mother's Boys.
I saw the poster and I was like, I'm scared.
No, don't. There is nothing to be scared of. Except if you are like not into mother-son bathtub scenes. If like that's like not what you're into, then like don't watch it. But if you're into that, then definitely get your hands on it.
So this is the era of like the psychosexual thriller that you have your Fatal Attractions and you have your Basic Instincts, and then this fucking movie. And like there is no, she's like sweeps into this movie constantly wearing white turtlenecks, bleach blonde. She's like, I'm insane. Have you met me? Hi, I'm crazy.
Right, just like and looking at the photos in this movie, I'm like,
I also feel like she's insane but like not insane enough. Like it's not crazy. She's not crazy. The craziest thing she does.
I think she's insane on paper more than Jamie Lee Curtis is insane in the movie.
She's like not crazy in like a fun enough way. Like I wanted her to have more like Rebecca De Mornay, Hand That Rocks the Cradle energy.
She does like mentally seduce her son and then try and kill their dog in an attempt to kill her ex-husband's new girlfriend.
How old is this
I think
son?
that's a little crazy.
Yeah.
Maybe like 13, 14.
And why does she want to seduce him?
Unclear.
Unclear to like get him on her side. I guess
she's like, love your mommy physically.
Like she's like, he's like, at one point she's like, bring me the phone. She's in the bathtub and he comes in and he's like, but you're naked. And she's like, well, I've seen you naked plenty of times. And it's like, nope.
Guess. Do you see the scar? Look at it. Wherever I was, I would see that and think of you.
It's the rare movie that really does everything wrong. Like that gets everything wrong in the way that like you could see what they're going for and you're just like, oh no, this is the wrong way to go about. It's like it's not fun. It's wild.
And the funny thing is like that son is fucked up forever.
Yeah.
And the movie does not address it at the end. Like it just sort of ends and you're just like, oh no, that kid needs like years of therapy. Every decade there's like the Jamie Lee Curtis renaissance. There's like the 1994's True Lies comes around. True Lies is a movie that is notorious too long and but
notoriously has like 4 endings.
It's a classic James Cameron 5-ending movie.
Yeah, I was
the man
does
not want to end a movie.
I was gonna say 4 is you being nice.
Like they really had Jamie Lee Curtis hanging out of a helicopter.
And they were like, we could go for another 40 minutes, guys.
We could do better than this. We could do better.
Doesn't like a nuclear bomb go off in the background after they like safely land?
Yeah.
And then they're like,
correct.
But then Eliza Dushku, she's been stolen. I had never seen this movie before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, never seen this.
Did you like it? What'd you think?
And it's all I was thinking. I was like, oh, this is a James Bond movie. Like wannabe popcorn version of that. But also weirdly, like, it's a weird mashup of like James Cameron was like, okay, we're doing the 4-quadrant like bitch, like because it's insane action, but also like goofy family nonsense. Where like I thought of like Mr. and Mrs. Smith type things, or like we're a family, it's crazy, and like she's cheating and like don't want that. Like it's but also I did not know that this scene came from this movie where she's stripping for him, stripping for Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I'm like, this is hot as fuck, banging bod.
She is when she's stripping for him, and she lets go, is writhing against the bedpost and slips off of it. I've seen that 1,000 times. It makes me laugh every time. Also, is this the only movie Arnold Schwarzenegger has ever been attractive in?
I mean, I buy that also. And maybe it's just because they I think they have like really good chemistry, actually. I was like, I want to see them in that bed.
And the build up to it where she like tears the sleeves off the dress.
She throws like the water from like the vase like in her hair. And then also, but she does that really, I mean, she's such a comedic genius because like her tits are out, she's looking great. And she's like walking all sexually. And then she like trips a little bit. And I'm like, God, it's just so good. She's never taking herself too seriously.
And so there was no rehearsal. None. He had no idea what was going to happen. None of us did. He had a camera, like, on a dolly. There were 100 people in the room. And it was truly, there was that moment where I remember saying, huh, okay.
I'm about to do this.
And what's about to happen? And then let it happen.
Yeah.
And ultimately let her own it. Let her control it.
You totally did. But
at the beginning, of course, she's not. She's very nervous.
And I think that's sort of what I think that's the perfect way to get out of that movie is that's what she's doing, is she's proving that she is both this really fierce action star. She gets that job because James Cameron, was with Catherine Bigelow, and Catherine Bigelow suggested her, and it all clicks. And then once again, it's suddenly this downswing. She does House Arrest and Fierce Creatures, which was supposed to be this big comeback for the cast of A Fish Called Wanda, and it's a total disaster. And really, it's not, the upswing Jamie Lee Curtis again until 1998's Halloween H2O, 20 years later. H2O, man. What do you guys think of H2O?
I will be discussing H2O later in a different segment.
Excellent.
I would be remiss if we didn't say that True Lies is definitely the closest Jamie Lee Curtis gets to an Oscar nomination, right?
Yeah, that's true.
She's SAG Award nominated. She's wins the Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy. You feel like if there wasn't some category confusion there, H2O, I will relent, but I think I love it. I love it.
Louis? Why don't we move past H2O for the moment? But then once again, back into that downswing. There's a Virus in 1999, Drowning Mona, which is kind of disastrously reviewed, even though it's a huge cast. You have Danny DeVito and Bette Midler.
I watched that and I was like,
Nev Campbell, which is the meeting of the Scream Queens, but
a gloriously miscast Nev Campbell.
Oh yeah,
she does her best.
I think Nev Campbell always does her best. Don't ever let anybody say that I don't think Nev Campbell is trying. I just think she's a little
minutes in, and Bette Midler's screaming, and I'm like, you know what? Bette's always fun. I'm here.
She does the Taylor of Panama, and I only bring up the Taylor of Panama because it's a fine movie, and I actually think she's very good in it, and I think everybody's very good in it. But I remember her talking about, as I mentioned, it's directed by John Borman, who was like 97 years old at this point. That's an exaggeration, but and she said, in between scenes, him and Jeffrey Rush would sit there and talk about process and all these things, and she would just stand there with Pierce Brosnan like looking at each other, and finally like they were in an elevator one day, and she's like, I feel like such a fucking bad actor because of all this. And he's like, yeah, me too. And I just like that she's like, everybody has their own process.
She's like, I'm just out there playing pretend. I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Exactly.
What other art form do you create on a schedule? What other art form, any art form, writing, photography, where you say, we are going to shoot the love scene between Gaga and Jamie on Friday at 10 o'clock, right. They are going to create that thing. And what if it's not there? What if that moment of creation isn't happening?
Right.
In our business, unless you have a director who has a lot of money and time and he can go back to it, you have to. And so it's a forced creation, and there's a team of people creating that moment. Mm-hmm. And when you see a moment in a movie that is so staggering, you realize the amount of dance that has created that forced creation moment. It really, it always humbles me and makes me understand how much I love a great performer when all of that can happen.
Halloween Resurrection in 2002, which was her big swing to finally end her role in the series.
She said enough.
Yeah. Jennifer Lopez,
enough.
Wow.
But the next movie she does, once again, is that like
the upswing.
2000 Jamie Lee Curtis Renaissance Freaky Friday. Freaky Friday is a remake of a previous film starring Jodie Foster in the Lindsay Lohan role. She becomes really good friends with Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay Lohan to this day says she can like call up Jamie Lee Curtis and ask her for advice.
Poor Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
Can you just imagine her phone ringing at 3 a.m.?
Do not give your phone number to Lindsay Lohan. No one give your number to her.
Honestly, like, I think that's a good influence to have in your life.
Oh, for sure.
If you could contact Jamie Lee Curtis,
oh my God,
she could be your phone a friend if you were like drunk at 3 a.m. in a bar. It's just like, Jamie Lee, I just want you to know.
And Lindsay has done that so many times.
You are. Yeah.
All jokes aside, I couldn't be rooting for anyone more than I'm rooting for Lindsay Lohan. I will be here when she has her Drew Barrymore-esque return and hosts a crazy talk show, much like Drew Barrymore.
It will be crazy.
I think in Freaky Friday, my hot take on Freaky Friday is that like when that movie came out and it was such a huge hit, Jamie Lee Curtis got all the flowers for it, right? I think she was Golden Globe nominated again. I think she's probably like long listed maybe for Best Actress. Like she did, like there was a lot of buzz around her. Looking back on it, watching that movie again, maybe this morning, Lindsay Lohan is great in that movie.
You think?
Oh, I think she's great. You didn't think so? I think Jamie Lee Curtis is doing a lot of like acting and like whoever wrote that script. I don't have it.
That's my big issue. I've never really liked that movie that much, but good God, the script, which is written by Heather Hatch and Leslie Dixon, they genuinely believe like a 16-year-old girl is a psychotic monster.
Yeah.
Like Jamie Lee Curtis
talk.
doing I could not believe how crazy she is.
Like I think Jamie Lee Curtis is acting circles around Lindsay. 2, I think it's way easier for her to play the like bratty teenager. Lindsay Lohan, the script that they've given her, they're making her be like, she's acting like some elder like debutantess woman, and I'm like, that's not what a normal like California mom talks like.
What are you doing? I can't do this. It was horrifying. No, it's okay, Mom. I unplugged you. Just go back out there and fake it. No, I don't even know how to do that. Come on, Mom. You can't tell me you never went to a rock concert. Okay, I saw the Stones once. Okay, great. Just go out there and act like Keith. Keith, right. Yeah. Richard's mom! I knew that. All right, just go act like Keith. Act like Keith.
And I don't think the performances at the beginning when they're in their normal bodies inform those later performances either, which is crazy to me because that's what you need to. They should have spent weeks studying each other and been like, fuck the lines in the script. And then from there, it's just like until Halloween, and I guess you could say her cameo in the Veronica Mars movie, which love.
Perfect.
Yeah,
perfect.
Playing a lawyer too, nonetheless. Really connecting back to her roots. But it's like kind of disaster comedy after disaster comedy after that. She's in Beverly Hills Chihuahua. She's in You Again. And then finally 2018's Halloween, which she said she did because, David Gordon Green sent her the script and she saw what was happening. The only thing I haven't really talked about in her personal life, and I did mention this up front, is she is a recovering addict. She had nearly a decade-long addiction to both alcohol and pain pills. She got addicted to them after dental surgery, actually, and she sort of realized this was going to be the fight of her life. She talks about it a lot. I really think she's very brave for talking about it because she talks about it in such a frank way.
I was in a good, stable marriage, writing books for children that were bestsellers. I was getting more and more work and more fame and attention and adulation. I got more as my addiction got worse, not less. My high bottom made that denial much more pervasive because it was all working. It's not working. Because if you are asking yourself, can I stop this? Then you're in a prison of your own mind. And I was in that prison, even though I was fabulous and all the bullshit part of show-off business.
And I can totally see why she would accept this version of Laurie Strode, because in H2O, you get the alcoholic Laurie Strode, the Laurie Strode who's into self-medicating. Here you get the one who has come out of the other side of that. And I think that's such an interesting area for her to play. I famously don't particularly care for the 2018 Halloween, I'll be honest. But I think she is the best part. And I think she has some of the best, most relevant lines, which occur in the first half an hour. Especially when she's talking about our propensity as people to care about the perpetrators of crimes and not the victims.
We just want to know why. We want a glimpse inside his mind. That's why your story is so important.
My story?
2 failed marriages, rocky relationship with your daughter and granddaughter.
Michael Myers murdered 5 people. And he's a human being we need to understand. I'm twice divorced. And I'm a basket case.
Well, I thought it was scary as fuck, first of all. No one should watch it.
No one should watch it.
Like, why put yourself through the trauma of seeing this scary fucking movie? But
she genuinely feels the same way. She has said in interviews, there is a whole business of people paying money to eat bad popcorn, drink sugary drinks, and have the shit scared out of them. And she doesn't know why people do it.
But also saying that, like, the end of it is really... I was like, yes, bitch, work. Like, you know, I think there's a lot of payoff there. And this is coming from me who, like, is not invested in the whole, you know, series and whatever. But, like, Judy Greer, I think, is really good in it. I think
Judy Greer is so fucking good. She's the other good part of that movie.
I think, like, the kids are really good. And it's genuinely scary. I think the Halloween franchise kind of went into, like, off-the-rails, goofy nonsense realm for a while. And this feels like, you know, bringing it back. And I was just saying this, like, I hate saying the word, like, real. What, like, who gives a fuck? But the stakes felt a lot higher. Just seeing these 3 generations of women being like, fuck this man, and like him like torturing us. Like, so I enjoyed it, even though I fucking hated watching it.
Yeah, I mean, I really like it as a movie. I like it as part of like the Halloween canon, which I'm like very in the bag for. But I don't think it does anything that some of the other Halloween movie. It's retreading a lot of territory that the other Halloweens
really
already. A lot of the beats, like even the alcoholism and the trauma,
Right.
They do that in H2O. And as you'll hear, I think they do it pretty well. And also, I think they go so far to erase the lineage of the other Halloween movies, but then treat Michael Myers and the legend of Michael Myers as if all these other things happened. Because really, if it's just Halloween 1 and Halloween 2018, essentially 40 years ago, this guy killed 3 people.
Right.
And now, like, and so, yeah, there are like the podcast angle and all of that, but like they're treating him like this big thing, which it's awful that he killed these 3 people.
Right, but he's
like,
barely like a serial killer then.
You're right.
Well, you know?
He's not even technically a serial killer.
He's a spree killer.
I don't think.
I believe under technical terms. Yes, I know the difference between a spree killer and a serial killer.
I gotta go.
Meeting.
That said, I think that it is like incredibly well directed. Like definitely the best directed film since the first one. It's really enjoyable. I think Jamie Lee Curtis is amazing.
They like really bank on the idea though that the trauma is just like really localized to this woman and her family. You know, she treated her daughter in such a fucking crazy way and made her daughter resent her, and she's now, you know, like this little hermit living in behind her like fucking forested, guarded, whatever. And so it's not really about like this serial killer who's like ravaged a community or whatever. It's literally just about them. But I guess it's also weird, though, because he does kill, like, 3, 4, 5 other people in the movie.
I think we're all in agreement that, like, the movie handles trauma and what trauma does to a person fairly well, especially for a horror movie. And Jamie Lee Curtis embodies that really well, and so does Judy Greer. This is sort of like, hey, it's kind of like had you never shown up, he would have just, like, gone on his merry way and killed whoever else. That said, I am really interested about Halloween Kills is the next one that was supposed to come out in October. Now it's coming out next year because I think like it almost feels as if they've gotten all their homages out of the way. They've done all of that, and I'm really interested to see where they take the story next. And I'd follow Laurie Strode anywhere, man.
I do want to mention, and you mentioned this up at top. I mean, this, outside of Knives Out, which she's part of the ensemble of, which came out last year, and Halloween Kills, which is upcoming, and Halloween Ends, which is going to be the third and final of the films. Outside of that, I didn't really mention her TV work. She was on Anything But Love, which was a sitcom with Richard Lewis. That ran from 1989 to 1992. It's funny, Richard Lewis has said she was such a ham that she'd never done, live. She's not a theater queen. And so she'd get in front of the audience and be like, "Oh, they're laughing. Like, I should do this up more." and so he'd like, by the end of each take, she'd be like really feeling it and have him rolling in the aisles. And he kind of loved watching that part of her come alive because she's just a natural born entertainer. And she parlays it into other TV work when she's not doing films. She ends up doing a run on NCIS where she ends up being sort of the love interest of Mark Herman, who also played her husband in Freaky Friday. So it was a mini reunion there. And she has a reoccurring role on New Girl where she plays Zooey Deschanel's mother. I've never seen any of her episodes. Was not a New Girl fan.
You know who Zooey Deschanel's father is, and Jamie Lee Curtis's ex-husband on the show is Rob Reiner, director of This Is Spinal Tap.
Wow. Oh my God!
Starring
I actually kind of really like
Christopher
that.
Guest.
Yeah. Oh, I kind of really like that.
Fun.
Yeah, cute, right?
She did Scream Queens for Ryan Murphy for 2 seasons, and there's a great little Actors on Actors with her and Lady Gaga on YouTube if you want to give a look at that. And
Oscar-winning actress Lady Gaga.
Oscar-winning songwriter, I think.
Yeah.
It's Oscar-winning, actress.
Outside of all these amazing things she's done in sort of her Hollywood life, she is also a prolific children's book author.
Yes.
She has written 13 children's books, the last being Me, My Selfie, and I, A Cautionary Tale in 2018.
Love that. Me, My Selfie, and I.
Oh, yeah. And she's one of her best-selling ones is a book about adoption because she said she had to deal with parents saying things to her children like, well, she's not your real mother.
Wow.
Yeah, which I'm sure is a really fun thing. And once again, and I have said this several times on this fucking show, so much respect for people who adopt. Mm-hmm. There are so many children who need homes in this world. So yeah, good for her. And she also holds a patent. I found this so interesting.
So interesting.
In 1987, she created her own diaper. It's a modification of a diaper that has a moisture-proof pocket where you can put wet wipes, and it can be taken out with one hand while you're changing a child. But she refused to sell it to big diaper industry until everybody decided to start using biodegradable diapers. And in 2007, that patent expired and is now in public domain.
Yeah.
But in 2016, she's like,
I'm not done with my diaper revolution, bitch.
No, she patented another diaper, and that's set to expire in 2036. So who knows? Who knows what that is?
Diaper queen.
She's a classic diaper queen. I've said it before.
It's on her Scruff profile.
Oh
no.
We don't kink shame, but
I love that she's just like, I love being a mom.
Yeah.
I am the mommiest mom you'll ever mom.
Well, Louis said that, and I think her roles, like Christmas, the ones we haven't talked about, Christmas with the Cranks and you Again, like Freaky Friday. She's such a good mom on screen.
She really is.
There really is just like this warmth to her when she plays a mom. It's so like, exactly what you said, Gavin. Like, imagine being able to just like call Jamie Lee Curtis when you're in trouble. I feel like. I mean, I've got a great mom because I'm sure she will listen to this. My mom is amazing. She's great. But I would love to be able to call Jamie Lee Curtis in addition to my own mother.
Something that we haven't been able to talk about in a while, shockingly, since we just did John Hughes, is philanthropy, by the way. Mm-hmm. So she helped finance the rebuilding of the Great Synagogue in Budapest, Hungary, when she started to reconnect with her Jewish heritage, which I think is kind of cool. And she's obviously supported a lot of recovery charities, including 2003 Women in Recovery, which is a 12-step program for women in need, children affected by AIDS Foundation. She supported that. And she plays a leadership role in Children's Hospital Los Angeles, and supported the 2011 opening of a new inpatient facility for the organization. I said many times on the show, I think it's important that we talk about charities and what people support when we can find that information, because I think so often people look at celebrities and actors and they say, you know, like, why does this person's opinion matter? They should stick to the things they know. And they don't realize a lot of these people have money. They put it towards the causes they believe in, and they can give millions of dollars to something they truly believe in.
She's literally, you know, doing campaigning and fundraising for the Democratic ticket right now.
Absolutely.
Rock on.
I do want to end this segment, and we're going to move into our picks in just a second, but I do want to end this segment by returning to that New Yorker article about not having done hard work. That New Yorker article ends with the interviewer asking, are there any roles that you've done that you think are unsung, that no one asked you about? And Jamie Lee Curtis's response is, please. You know what? I get so much effing attention, which is just obscene, really. I've been doing this for a long, long time, and I've been successful at it since I was 19. There's not a day I don't walk down the street and somebody goes, hey, I love you. You're fantastic. And I appreciate it. I get it. It's been my gig. I don't need any more attention.
What a fucking answer.
Is she she's the best, guys.
She's genuinely the best. And with that, I think it's time we move into our picks. So why don't we start with our 1-star reviews?
Eddie, I want you to go first.
We do like to have our guests go first.
So I don't think my 1-star review will be super controversial. It was tough. There were a lot of stinkers in here. And I think I've made it clear I love Jamie Lee, as I like to call her, because that's her name.
Personal friend.
Yeah. But it's gotta be Virus for me. I could not grasp onto even a moment of the film. And I think it's the only movie that I've watched, where she's not even, like, it's not even, there's no like even charm or charisma coming off of her. It was really close between that and Fierce Creatures for me, just because, but I think Fierce Creatures is more of a disappointment because you're just like very big expectations. But Virus, she's like, it's also, she's matched with like Billy Baldwin, which
I know,
which is like exactly the type of guy who I'd expect to be in this space genre.
Yes, exactly. It's so funny too, because like I remember sort of the selling point of that movie. I remember when that movie came out. Sort of the selling point of the movie was like acting legacies. It's like we have a Baldwin, we have Jamie Lee Curtis of
interesting,
and we have Donald Sutherland, who's the father of Keith or Sutherland.
Donald Sutherland is
oh my god,
indeterminable in this movie. When I like really clued in and was like, is he doing an accent? I think there's a mutiny happening. I thought there is a version of this movie that is so stupid that it is a blast. And instead of doing that movie, they did whatever version of it that I guess I watched. I don't even, it's already been scrubbed from my brain. I really didn't enjoy it.
Are you out of your fucking mind? No one else is going to claim salvage on this vessel but us.
You're no longer in charge.
I just think that you watch that movie, and maybe it's also because I bring so much of my own, like, I really like Jamie Lee Curtis as like a celebrity and as an actress, but also just as a persona, I guess.
Yeah.
You feel like she's not having any fun. Like, I don't like to watch a movie where I'm actively feeling bad for somebody. That thinking like, oh, every day must have been a fucking nightmare. So I did not enjoy that. That is my 1-star review for Virus.
I would like to go next, actually, because I'm going to piggyback off of you. I rarely do this, but it is my show, so I give myself leeway. I'm going to give it a tie. And one of them is fucking Virus. Virus is an awful movie. It's gross. It's like terribly boring for a movie that's that gross. And also what's crazy about it is it comes about a decade too late for this, because when we were kids there was like RoboCop and stuff and Toxic Avenger, the movies that shouldn't have had toy lines that somehow did. This movie came out in 1999 and it had an action figure and tie-in video game this is a hardcore R-rated movie. There are guts. There is blood. It's gross. I don't understand it. But the thing that ties this together with my other pick, which is 2004's Christmas with the Cranks, is character arcs. And I think the problem here is, and Jamie Lee Curtis has said it herself, she's really good at pretending to be other people. But I think the key to pretending to be other people is being able to figure out something to latch onto about how they change over time. And my problem with both Virus and Christmas with the Cranks is she is playing one note and she plays it throughout the entire movie. And I think part of that's on the script page. Virus, real quick, by the way, is a film about a tugboat that comes across a Russian research vessel, which has been taken over by a sentient electric alien that is slowly turning its crew into cyborgs and wants to take over the Earth. And she plays this ex-Navy officer who is also I guess she's like the skipper on the tugboat, who's like, by the books and wants to do everything, and my dad and everything. And like literally all her lines are like, we got to do it this way. My dad, this way is the way it's got to be done. And that's it. That's that one note over and over and over again.
It's weird to hear you even describe the movie Virus, because I'm like, it also is a movie that literally doesn't exist, right? Like it just like, it has been lost to time. I didn't hate Christmas with the Cranks. I had never seen it. It's not good.
It's so bad.
I don't begrudge you your 1-star review at all. Because it's not great. It was very like, fine, this movie's on. What I didn't like about it is that the bulk of the movie is Jamie Lee Curtis spent being horny for Tim Allen. She's always trying to have sex with him in that movie.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that to be true about anybody.
She's either super horny for Tim Allen or so scared of her neighbors that you're like, why is this woman not a shut-in?
It's like her 5th time with Dan Aykroyd.
I know. Christmas with the Cranks, by the way, is a Christmas movie that exists in the magical world in which there are no Jewish people. and it's a film in which her and her husband decide they're going to skip Christmas this year because their daughter, played by the great Julie Gonzalo, who we've mentioned before,
who is also the mean girl in Freaky Friday.
She is. Yes, she absolutely is. They decide they're not going to do Christmas this year. They're going to go on a cruise, and the town turns against them like they're Frankenstein's monster and just will not let them not celebrate Christmas. But that's only the first 40 minutes plot. And then the next plot of the movie is their daughter is coming home with her fiance, who she got engaged to while in Peru, and they need to like put together Christmas real quick or else their daughter's Christmas is going to be ruined.
Luther, I can't live like this anymore.
Huh?
We can't go out. Everywhere we go, people are whispering behind our backs. I can't go home. It's too depressing. I mean, there's no tree, and no lights, and no music. I can't talk to you. You're just consumed with yourself.
And there is the hackiest, heartfeltiest moment at the end of the movie that like goes for your jugular that I was just like, fuck you guys, which I'm not going to tell you about, but it just, Tim Allen sucks.
Yeah.
Just, he's not good at a lot. And this movie clearly highlights that. There's a subplot with actual Santa in this movie.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's not good. Oh no, fine. That's right. You're right.
But my problem is like her job is to like either cower in her house out of fear of the neighbors, be horny for Tim Allen, or to freak out to like an 11 anytime her daughter calls out throughout that movie. It's the weirdest choices. And once again, she never has anywhere to go. There's never like any lesson that Nora Crank learns that improves her life or changes her as a person. So much so, in fact, that they have this terrible experience about almost skipping Christmas. And at the very end of the movie, Tim Allen's like, sorry, we aren't able to go on this cruise and we couldn't skip Christmas. And she literally says, maybe next year.
Boop.
Yeah, fuck these movies. Virus, Christmas with the Cranks. Louis, what is your 1-star review?
Okay, so I just don't want anyone to be mad. From what I watched, I guess I set myself up for failure because I did not I purposefully did not watch the like shitty bad movies, I guess. Like I did not watch fucking Beverly Hills Chihuahua or
I did sit through that, but she's basically a glorified cameo in that movie, so it's hard
And
for me to be
hit.
It was a hit. It spawned 2 direct-to-video sequels. I don't think Piper Baraboo's in either of them, but also starring Drew Barrymore as the voice of the Chihuahua.
What a choice to have Drew Barrymore
I didn't know
as the voice.
I didn't know the
character.
Chihuahuas talked in these movies, but
Guys, I'm eating my kibble. Isn't it quirky?
Stop.
Oh my god, that was good.
Uncanny.
Thank you.
So from what I watched, I was like, what? And I'm so sorry, Eddie, but it's H2O. I can.
Oh no.
Wow. Wow.
I just between the introduction of Josh Hartnett and Michelle Williams's like decimated eyebrows, and the scene at the end where like they're almost gonna touch and hold hands because sister, brother, like whatever that moment is, I don't understand it. Also LL Cool J, who like wants to be a romance novelist and like is just like yelling at his girlfriend the entire time.
LL Cool J has my favorite line in that movie, though, which I think is clearly an improv, which is when he tells Josh Hartnett to brush his hair.
Yeah. I mean, I will admit that in that film, and I don't know if we can put this up. I know you guys have like a Tumblr. No, I don't know if like on your Twitter, but I do think that if you were to put up a picture of Michael Myers in his mask and a picture of Josh Hartnett with his hair, you would not be able to tell which is which.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a perfect film. Louis, I don't begrudge you your wrong, bad opinions. I think that you are welcome to have them, even if they are wrong and go against everything I believe in.
Listen, at the time, there was like, I don't understand like why in like the new millennium, every movie had to take place at some snooty like private school.
Genuinely,
She's literally like... When she's revealing to, like, the guidance counselor who she's fucking, she's like, yeah, it's actually me, Laurie Strode, and I'm a headmistress at Westchester, whatever the fuck it's called, in, like, Northern California. I'm like, what the fuck? And, like, it seems to me like the most flimsy and low stakes of all these movies. And it's so much exposition. Like, the entire movie is exposition. She's just like, yeah, it's actually me, and I'm hiding from my brother.
I changed my name when I went into hiding.
Well, I like that. That's like the witness protection program. What did you like, rat out the mob or something?
My brother killed my sister when she was 17.
Well, that's sucky. How'd he do that?
With a really big, sharp kitchen knife.
Can I give you a little 1-star review tea, by the way, a little behind the scenes tea? Yes. So Virus is the next year, and Jamie Lee Curtis was having such a bad time on that film that she tried to get John Bruno, who directed it, replaced with Steve Miner, who directed Halloween H2O, and he was too busy shooting Dawson's Creek.
Well, you know, that busy.
I will say, if I have one major qualm about H2O, it's that it looks like a TV show.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I also believe that had Louis seen, say, Virus or Fierce Creature, I think there's a lot of movies on this list that you could, if you tried, you could hate more.
Yeah,
I don't disagree.
You have the ability to hate these other movies more.
I agree.
But I think that there are, you know, as I will maybe discuss, I don't want to spoil anything. I think there's a lot wrapped up in my feelings about
I don't know if you know what
H2O.
spoilers are.
That might be true.
I from the 3 Halloweens I watched, I was like, this one is the worst one.
So I think that's a good, because we could tell you what H2, I think we kind of actually very much touched on H2O, but we could talk about it in our 5-star reviews because we're clearly going there. But before we get there, was there anything else that you guys watched that you didn't particularly like? I'm going to shout out real quick before I turned Drowning Mona off. I was like, she's not a huge role in this. I'm not going to have to deal with, like, I got to her first couple scenes and I was like, I'm good. I've seen it before. I saw it years ago and I was like, I don't have fond memories. I'll just leave it at that.
I thought it was fine. I rewatched it, you know, and I again thought it was fine. I really thought The Fog was a snooze. Like, of those...
Get out. I fucking The Fog is like my favorite John Carpenter film. You're wrong.
Wow, the reviews.
Okay, all right.
They're mixing up.
Guys, This is real mixed. I did think it was boring.
I thought Prom Night was boring. I was like,
Prom Night's awful.
Prom Night is capital B
worst.
bad.
I was like, wait.
My note. Go ahead.
The brother in the end.
And like I said before, I really had a hard time with Trading Places, but I think that that's a movie that belongs in sort of a specific space and time.
Yeah,
I agree. And I was going to say, if there was any other I wanted to bring up, it was certainly, I mean, obviously Fierce Creatures. Fierce Creatures is awful. And it's funny.
It's so bad.
It's so funny because the whole Fish Called Wanda connection and just the night and day of it all. But Trading Places is remembered as like this sort of bastion of comedy, and I really think everybody should take a really good hard look at it and just reappraise it, because it's not worth as much as it was. Let's get out of our 1-star reviews. Let's go to Rosier Pastures and let's move into our 5-star reviews.
Eddie, I think you have something to say.
My 5-star review is 1998's Halloween H2O. And I stand by it.
Tell me.
Halloween H2O for me is like the first time that I experienced Jamie Lee Curtis as a movie star. And I had been like I said, me and my best friend Carla, we had watched all of the Halloween movies. And when this movie came out, it was such a big deal. So I think there's a lot of my personal experience with it. I remember the press releases about her coming back to the Halloween franchise. I remember sort of the production stills, that very famous shot of kind of like her seeing Michael Myers for the first time through that door. And above and beyond all of that, well, I think that there are a lot of problems with the film. I think you could cut out LL Cool J. You could like excise some of the weird plot holes. Like, for example, sort of the revelation that maybe Michael Myers is coming back to kill her son because it's his 17th birthday.
Yes, I was like,
and
what?
That's when Michael attacked her for the first time. But actually, we know that his birthday was 4 months ago because his father's a deadbeat. There's a lot of stuff there, right? So this is like the weirdest 5-star review ever. I do think, as somebody who's experienced a certain amount of trauma and grief in their life, I think that she says in that movie, do you think it's possible that someone can, that something so tragic can happen to a person that they never recover? And I remember like 17-year-old version of me really, really relating to that like moment and her grief and sort of the power of her trauma and how she was hiding it in alcoholism. And it just all really resonated with me. I think it is, I mean, I can't believe I'm going to say this on the back of your 1-star review, but in some ways I think it's her best performance.
That is wild to me.
I think she is so good in that movie in a way that does not get any kind of respect, or in a movie that is sort of not seen, in a genre of movie that isn't seen as that kind of caliber. But she is, when she sees Josh Hartnett walking around and she goes, "What do you think you can do, John? Just walk around?"
What the fuck do you think you're doing?
Mom, I'm really uncomfortable with you saying that
Well,
word.
then don't put me in the position, John. Do you know what day it is? Of all the days for you to pull this shit, what do you think you can do? Just wander around town?
I mean, like, I used to say that all the time. So it's definitely ingrained in me. I understand I'm bringing a lot of personal bias to it, but I also think she is genuinely great in it. And like that last 30 minutes, like, so what you see is like a silly kind of, and I respect your opinion that it's sort of like silly at the end of her like reaching out his hand and reaching out her hand. But when I saw that in the theater, and she chops off his head, spoiler alert, Michael Myers dies at the end of every Halloween movie, spoiler alert, guys.
Allegedly.
The theater erupted. Like, people lost their minds.
I remember seeing it in the theater too.
That to me was like the most powerful moment in like horror movies, where like to somebody who doesn't have that experience with the franchise or with her performance in it, or like has no skin in that game, it's like, why are they going to touch hands? But in that moment, to me, I'm bringing, I guess, all that history with it. And I think it's like that moment at the end where they reach out for each other and she then chops his head off is probably one of my like favorite movie moments ever. I love the stuff with her and Adam Arkin. And when she sort of admits, and I guess I don't see it as exposition. I see it as like a person dealing with their trauma and like sharing that with the person that they love. Again, because like I've been watching these movies for so long at that point, and I have a history with them. And he goes, he's just trying to get in her pants kind of, and not realizing that she's seriously confessing to her because they're making out. And she says, when 20 years ago, my brother killed my sister on Halloween. And he goes, how did she do that? How did he do that? And she goes, with a big kitchen knife. Yeah. I mean, I love it. It's all very Kevin Williams. It's all very 90s horror. The cold open is such like a Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer ripoff. Yeah. I get it. I see all of those flaws, but I could obviously talk about it for ever and ever and ever. I think she's so great in it, and I love that movie. So you know what, Louis? You can go to hell.
See you there, bitch.
My 5-star review is probably also going to be maybe not controversial, but probably not one that I think either of you guys were going to go for. And I think it's A Fish Called Wanda. I think she really shows...
That's mine too, so...
What? Yeah.
I hate this. I can't believe how mean you guys are to your guests and tell the world.
I think she really shows her range in that movie. I think she's so fucking funny.
Yeah,
First of all, good. I think the beginning of that film is pitch perfect, the way it introduces everybody in their specific roles. You have John Cleese, who's in court. You have her taking photos. You have fucking Kevin Kline waking up and like being the worst person alive, just waking up in the morning and firing a gun.
Yeah.
And Michael Palin taking care of his fish. And I think that just explains their characters right away, gets you in really quick. A Fish Called Wanda, as I mentioned before, it's a film in which they're criminals. They're trying to rob a bank, basically they set somebody else up for the fall, but he hides the money on them and they need to figure out where the money is. Part of her whole gig in the film is to seduce John Cleese, but she ends up sort of falling in love with him. And it's funny because she has this like weird tick that, Kevin Kline speaking Italian to her really fucking turns her on.
It's so good.
It's so good. And the joke is that he can't really speak Italian. So he's saying like pasta fagioli. At one point he sings volare just because it's the only thing he can clearly think of. And so when she gets with John Cleese, she's like, do you speak Italian? And he speaks Italian to her, and it turns out, but he's like, but Russian's a much better language. And then he doesn't really speak Russian, really. It's like he just says stuff.
But she loses it.
Archie.
Hmm?
Do you speak Italian?
I am Italian. Sono italiano in spirito, ma ho sposato una donna che preferisce lavorare nel giardino a far l'amore appassionato un spaglio grande.
But it's such an ugly language. How about Russian?
Есть силу благодатнее созвучий слов живу. Поминато жизни трудную, теснится ли в сердце грудь.
She's like humping a rope, and
it's so good.
It's so good, and I just love everything about her character. And her character really does have an arc because she goes from really trying to set John Cleese up. She's a little ruthless, basically, ready to have sex with him in his wife's home. His wife steals her locket accidentally, and she's then trying to get that locket back for most of the movie, realizing how much of an idiot Kevin Kline is, who's also pretending to be her brother. And she has that really gross moment where she's like, I'd fuck you even if you were my brother. Yeah. And I don't know, everything is so pitch perfect. She has that great moment too where she confronts him because he has this fear of being called stupid, and she's like, yes. She's like, you're stupid to stupid people, essentially.
Yeah, that's her Oscar clip, right? That's that's her BAFTA clip. My question to Gavin, my question to you as another bisexual king on this podcast. Sorry, Louis. John Cleese, hot in that movie, right?
Hot in that movie, not hot in Fierce Creatures.
No, but also Jamie Lee Curtis. Intellectually, she's hotter in other movies.
Yeah.
But like, there is something about the two of them in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I gotta tell you, I got like super hot for Jamie Lee Curtis, although
Absolutely.
I feel like she's like too hot almost in some ways, where I'm like, it's too intimidating to handle. It's great.
Louis, I want to give you a chance to add your 2 cents for A Fish Called Wanda. I'm really happy that you and I clearly see eye to eye on this movie. But I do have to say the other thing, one of my favorite outfits in the movie is her like leopard print, very 80s shoulder patch jacket.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
So fucking,
I just think I prefer her in comedy mode. I think she's a lot funnier. Or she's more effective when she's funny, just because she really goes for broke, and she's one of those rare actors who, like, I know she's working hard, but it doesn't look like it. She makes it look so easy. She is so natural, and so when even though she's like really fucking hot and sexy, she's able to like take the piss out, and she just like has that. And I think that's probably something that is from her like normal everyday life. And, you know, being raised by these two, like, legendary actors, and she brings it to the stage. And so I was like, I know I'm going to pick something that she's, you know, it's going to be a comedy. I had never seen A Fish Called Wanda. And I just thought, like, this movie is, I mean, there's so many, like, the bit of the guy who has a stutter, the bit of him trying to kill the woman, but just killing all these dogs.
It's so good.
It's so good.
I will say,
funny.
There is an unfortunate, like, very brief moment of blackface, and like he admittedly doesn't do any, like, he's just wearing it as a disguise. Thank God he doesn't like try and do sort of any impression. But I was still like, why guys? Couldn't you've just put him in the stupid Rastafarian hat?
Yeah.
Like, isn't that enough?
I think also in this movie, she is able, because she's like a liar and she's a cheater, she's like, she's slipping in and out of these things. You get to see her like be manic and like, oh my God, okay. And then boom, she's like seduction mode. And then boom, like, okay, we gotta like fucking do the thing. And so she is like bending over backwards, like fucking double Arabian splits, like doing everything in this movie. And she's just like nailing all of it. She's just so funny, and it's like all of the best things about her. She's funny, she's hot, she's able to, you know, be sexy and
vulnerable,
and she's the only woman in this entire movie. Like, basically,
yes.
Like all double cross, triple cross movies, they only work when like you don't see them coming or whatever. And in this movie, I'm like, I have no idea if she really is into Klein or John Cleese. Like, you just don't know. Like, in the end, maybe she'll say, "Fuck it, I want this all for myself." Because like they are all liars. You know, they are all. Well, I mean, like John Cleese's character is like kind of dragged into this.
Before we get into our fast forward, was there anything else that you guys particularly liked that you saw? I do, once again, I know it was not your favorite, Eddie, but I really connected to Love Letters, and I wish there were more opportunities for women to be in films like this. To like, I connected to this sad, weird character in a weird way, but yeah, I would love. I don't know. I think that was an interesting turning point for her career, but you know, obviously, it
didn't go anywhere. But I agree. I think True Lies. Never seen it. I thought it was so fun, even though it's like dumb popcorn stuff. It's really fun.
Still cut like 40 minutes out of it.
The horse in the elevator, like what?
I think watching My Girl for the first time as an adult, Anna Schlumsky in that movie, Schlumsky, she's a star.
Yeah,
I mean,
she genuinely is.
She's so great in that movie. Jamie Lee Curtis, I think we already said this, is so incredibly warm. I mean, that's all that role requires, is like just radiate warmth to this girl who like needs a mother figure. But it's definitely the kind of movie that I saw 1,000 times when I was a kid, and then haven't seen it in 20 years, and now I'm like, oh, this movie is still really good. And also, like, I'm watching this movie now from the perspective of like, what would it be to be the Jamie Lee Curtis, as opposed to the Anna Schlumsky. I would sort of stump for Knives Out.
Yes.
I would put Jamie Lee Curtis on my long list for Best Supporting Actress last year. I think she's really great. That movie is so fun and so just like as cozy as Chris Evans' sweater.
Mm-hmm.
I love that movie. And I think she's so great.
Yeah.
Before we move into our fast forward, why don't we do our mixed reviews review? So my 1-star review was it's a tie between 1999's Virus and 2004's Christmas with the Cranks.
My 1-star review was 1998's Halloween H2O, 20 years later.
My 1-star review was 1999's Virus.
My 5-star review was 1988's A Fish Called Wanda.
So was mine.
My 5-star review, despite Louie's scolding, is 1998's Halloween H2O, which I am already embarrassed about.
We are going into our fast forward. She has these 2 Halloween sequels that are coming out, Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. Hopefully the pandemic will be over and we will get our Halloween Kills next year and Halloween Ends the following year. Other than that, she really only has this movie called Spiceosis on her.
Spiceosis?
And it's written by Tom Arnold,
Ugh.
who she knows from doing True Lies. So I'm guessing it's a favor, and she's playing a character named Jamie. So I'm gonna guess probably not a large role. But you know what? She has said, and I'm kind of cool with this. She has basically tried to retire a couple times in her career. Prior to H2O, she was like, I'm done. I'm a mom, I'm a writer, whatever, I'll do. She came back for H2O. I'm curious if she's just sort of entering that mode again. She's also talked about how her and her husband they travel together. They don't spend time apart like a lot of actors do, or a lot of directors do. And so I think maybe that's part of it. She's just very much, she's a family person. And I think she really wants to stay in tune to that portion of her life.
Well, it's wild though, because like I think she's in the middle of like another renaissance, you know, like
most bankable actress in America in Hollywood right now.
It's apparently. Like if you, she between Halloween, which became like the highest grossing horror,
the highest grossing opening weekend for a woman, starring a woman in her 60s, I believe is the stat. Yeah. Like it opened to $70 million or something crazy like that. Right. So like, and Halloween Kills will open just as big.
Oh, it's going to be huge, especially after a year in which people can't go to the movie theaters.
I think that like where her career is currently speaks to kind of how we started this conversation, is that like she doesn't really feel like she has anything to prove. There's no role that she wishes was, more lauded. And she's kind of like, yeah, I'll do movies when I can do movies, and I won't if I don't. And that all sounds great. And somebody calls me to ask me to do a favor, I'll do it. But I think it's
Knives Out is like a perfect example of that, and just slotting into this like big, comedy whodunit, and it's like so good and so easy breezy, and I see that for her, and I feel that for her, and I love that for her.
I would love nothing more. Maybe it's not for Halloween Kills, but for her to have like a killer supporting role in something like a Knives Out, and like finally get those, those roses she deserves.
Yeah.
But I think I want that as a fan of hers and somebody who thinks that she's a great actress. I think that part of it is that she sort of seems indifferent about that. Yeah. Do it for me, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, she's like, listen, if Ryan Murphy calls me, it's like, whatever. Like,
yeah. But if Ryan Murphy calls you, don't pick up the phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Please do the pilot of Scream Queens, which is chef's kiss perfect, but then also don't do anything else.
Oh my God, if he comes to you with like an origin story of the mother from The Exorcist, please don't do it.
Please. That was so specific and so accurate that I'm terrified.
Please don't. But yeah, and that's kind of what we've talked about this from the start of this podcast. She's easy breezy. She doesn't ever want to do anything that she doesn't want to do. And obviously she's had these advantages in life. She hasn't taken them for granted, and she's not going to. And in a way, I think the thing that would fuck up most people, and probably certainly not help during her phase in which she suffered from problems with addiction, But I think the thing that would fuck up most people has actually played to her benefit because she's been realistic about it. She's like, I am fortunate. I've been fortunate from the start, and I can give a little bit of that back, and that's really what I want to do, and that's it. And I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. I'm fucking Jamie Lee Curtis. And I think
that maybe that's why her and Christopher Guest go so well together, because like he's so unaffected by Hollywood and she
Yeah, he has a title.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, and so I think that's exactly it. Where they're both people that come from impressive privilege, who like are like, fuck this Hollywood game.
They're both like, we didn't work for this. Like, this is stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I would watch her in anything. I did literally watch her in anything over these last 10 days.
And you did, and we shall.
Everybody see Mother's Boys. So that wraps up Jamie Lee Curtis. Thank you so much, Eddie, for coming on our show. Before we get out, we're going to give you a moment to plug your stuff. So where can people find you online?
Oh, boy. So you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Eddie, EDDIE _ oh, boy, Mouradian, MOURADIAN. We love a vowel in the Mouradian family. Also,
I like that you spelled that like you've had to do that on the phone many times.
Every time.
It's the same with me. It's like MEV as in Victor, IUS.
Yeah, no, I have to spell my name and then also say I'm a man because the pitch of my voice. And I also am a contributor to Awards Watch, so check out my stuff there. But thank you guys so much for having me. As you know, I demand by legality to be back if you ever do a Julia Roberts episode.
If we ever want to do like one of the hardest fucking episodes, we will have you back.
Yeah. We'll be sure to almost close your hand in a box so you can laugh and laugh and laugh. But yes, thank you everybody for listening to us. We love that you come back each week. We've been getting a lot of great reviews and we're going to talk about them within the next episode. But before we do all that, where can you find us online? Well, you can find us on Twitter at The Mixed Reviews.
We're also on Facebook. Just type in The Mixed Reviews.
You can email us at reviewsmixed@gmail.com.
We're also on Instagram. Just type in _mixed_reviews. Gavin puts up so much fun little content there.
I try too hard. And if you want to listen to us as you have been doing, you can feel free to subscribe to our show on every major podcast.
We're everywhere.
We're on Apple. Oh yeah, we're on Stitcher. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Amazon. We're on Google Play. All of them. And if you want to do me a big favor, please go to Apple Podcasts and write us a review and leave us a nice little 5 stars on that. We'll read it on the show.
I literally was telling someone yesterday about our podcast, and they're like, where can we listen? And I was like, oh, we're everywhere. Like iTunes.
Yeah, baby, we're everywhere.
And they were like, oh my God, really? And I was like, yeah, girl, like, get on Spotify. We're there, bitch.
And so thank you for joining us this week. And please remember, we are still in a pandemic, and as it turns out, anybody can catch it.
So it is what it is.
It is what it is. So please wear a mask, wash your hands, donate to causes.
We'll see you guys next time. Make sure to check out for our poll coming soon to vote for your favorite Jamie Lee Curtis movie. Eddie, thank you again. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
I wish I had you all alone, just the two of us.